Have you ever felt so hungry that you thought that you could eat a whole elephant? There are times when people go through many days without having any food available to them, and when that happens in a country for a long time, it's called a famine. That's the situation Joseph's family found themselves in. There had been no rain and food couldn't grow. The famine was terrible. Things had happened just like God said that they would. First, there were 7 years of good crops, and then there were 7 years of dry land, and no food would grow. The famine had spread to other countries, and hungry people from many places in Egypt came to buy that food. The famine had reached the land of Canaan, and Jacob's family didn't have enough food. So Jacob sent his 10 older sons to Egypt, where he heard that they could buy grain. The youngest son, Benjamin, stayed home with his father. When Joseph's brothers got to Egypt, they stood face to face with him, but they didn't recognize that it was Joseph. He was wearing Egyptian clothes instead of shepherd's clothes, and he was a teenager when they last saw him. Now he was 39 years old. The brothers bowed with their faces to the ground before this important man, and as Joseph looked at his brothers, bowing before them, he remembered the dreams that he had as a child, and now they were coming true. God had given Joseph those dreams as a sign for the future. You see, God knows everything. He's omniscient, and God knew that one day Joseph's brothers would bow before him. God is also sovereign. He's in control. He's in control of everything. God controlled the weather to bring the famine, and he also brought Jacob's sons from Canaan to Egypt to bow down before Joseph. God gave Pharaoh his dreams and had him make Joseph a ruler over Egypt. Isn't God amazing? Just for fun, let's see what it may have been like when the brothers talked to Joseph.
Where do you men come from?
Well, you see, the famine has traveled across the land, and we came here into Canaan to get food for the family. We're all out of food.
Likely story. Buying food for your family. That's what they all say. I bet you are a spy. The only reason you came is to see how badly Egypt is starving from the famine. If we look weak, then you're going to start a war with us.
No! We are innocent! We would never do that! We are your servants, not spies! There are 12 of us. We have one other brother, a younger brother, who's back home. And we had
A younger brother?
another brother.
If you want to prove that you're not spies, then you must bring your younger brother over here.
The rest of you will remain here until your younger brother arrives. If you refuse to do that, then I know all of you are spies.
Now, in the skit, Joseph talked with his brothers, but in the Bible, Joseph used an interpreter, so the brothers didn't really know that Joseph could understand their language. In Genesis 42:21, it says, "Then they said to one another, 'In truth, we are guilty concerning our brother Joseph. In that we saw the distress of his soul. And when he begged us, we didn't even listen to him. And that's why this distress has come upon us.'" The brothers had been feeling guilty for all those years for what they did to Joseph, and they knew they deserved to be punished. They were guilty of sin against Joseph and against God. All sin is against God. They didn't know that Joseph heard and understood every word they were saying. Hearing this conversation brought Joseph to tears. He quickly went to another room so his brothers wouldn't see him cry. And when Joseph returned, he sent his brother Simeon to prison, where he would stay until the others returned with their younger brother. He also ordered his servants to fill the brothers' sacks with grain and return their money to the sacks. After Joseph's servants looked at the grain, the brothers started for home. Along the way, they stopped to rest, and one of the brothers opened his grain sack to feed his donkey. He was shocked to find his money in the sack with the grain, and now it looked like he had stolen from the Egyptians. The brothers were even more afraid. Now they were sure God was punishing them for what they had done. They felt guilty for the evil they had done to their brother Joseph and to their father. When they arrived home, they told their father Jacob what had happened and that the governor of the land had accused them of being spies. They told Jacob that the governor had put Simeon in prison, and the governor would continue to believe they were spies unless they brought Benjamin back with them. Jacob said to his sons, "What is this that you've done to me? Joseph is dead, Simeon is gone, and now you want to take Benjamin away?" Jacob would not let Benjamin go. But after a few months, the grain they brought back from Egypt was gone. If they wanted to have food to eat, they would have to return to Egypt. Finally, Jacob agreed that there was no other way. He would send Benjamin, so he sent a lot of gifts and double the money to pay the governor. Then Benjamin would go to Egypt with his brothers. When the brothers got to Egypt, Joseph saw them, and when he saw Benjamin, he arranged for them all to have a meal with him. And the brothers were afraid, of course, because they were led to Joseph's house. They thought they would be accused of stealing the money. They explained to Joseph's steward that they had tried to pay for the grain, and the man assured them that everything was fine. Their brother Simeon was released from prison and brought to the house with them, and then they all sat down to eat. When Joseph arrived, they gave him the gifts that Jacob had sent, and they bowed low before Joseph. He asked about their father, and he was introduced to Benjamin. Seeing his younger brother after so many years caused Joseph to cry again. He hurried to his room so that he could cry alone, and then, after washing his face, Joseph returned to eat with his brothers. Joseph had planned where each person would sit, and the brothers were surprised to see that they were seated from oldest to youngest. When Joseph served their food, he put 5 times more on Benjamin's plate. The brothers were amazed at the kind treatment from the governor, and Joseph was showing God's love and kindness to them. Joseph was showing God's love and kindness to his brothers, even though they didn't deserve it. After the brothers ate with Joseph, their grain sacks were filled, and the brothers spent the night, and then they took their new grain and they started home. They must have been overjoyed to be going home with Benjamin and Simeon. Just as they were leaving, Joseph's steward came after them and accused them of stealing the governor's special silver cup. The brothers were shocked, and they denied such a thing. The steward searched each grain sack, and when he came to Benjamin's, what did he find? There was Joseph's silver cup. The brothers couldn't even believe it. The steward was going to take Benjamin back to the governor to be his slave. And what would their father do if they didn't return with Benjamin? All the brothers turned around and they went back with the steward to Joseph. Joseph acted angry, asking them why they would steal from him. Then Judah, the brother who sold Joseph to the caravan, fell to the ground before Joseph, and he explained about their father and how hard it had been for him to let Benjamin come with them. And Judah said that if they couldn't return with Benjamin, his father would die of sadness. And then Judah begged Joseph to keep him as a slave instead of Benjamin. he ordered everyone but his brothers to leave the room, and then he told them,
I'm Joseph.
He then asked if his father was still alive. Can you imagine the shock that his brothers had? They thought Joseph was dead, and the brothers were terrified. They didn't know what to say. All the terrible things that they'd done to Joseph must have been rushing through their minds. And now he was a powerful man. What would he do to them? Genesis 45:5 and 7 and 8 says, And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, it was God. Joseph was able to see that God is sovereign. He's in control of everything. And Joseph had been born into a family of promise. His father Jacob was chosen by God to be the father of many nations. And to keep that promise, God sent Joseph to Egypt to make him a great and wise leader who would provide food for Jacob's family that they might live. This was God's plan all along. God protected Jacob's family through Joseph because of his promise. Through his family, God promised to send a Savior.